It's a long 10 seconds, isn't it?
And we are live.
Hi guys, welcome to our 40-second YouTube live session. I'm Wayne Smith, MD and co-founder of Brew York.
And I'm Lee Grabham, production director and other co-founder.
And we definitely feel like newsreaders tonight. So, it's our subscriber party. So anyone at home who hasn't been able to make it, I'm sorry you couldn't join us, but we've got loads of people in the audience and I'm sure they'll fill you in on what you've missed out on.
Give us a wave, guys.
So real full house today, and we're going to have to talk really loud so to make sure everyone can hear us. And if we do have any audio issues, hopefully we won't this month, but apologies about the little hiccup last month. So, yeah, we're back in York. We're back in our Hoptail Lounge in the original brewery. So,
you almost forgot the name of this room.
I know, because of all the different rooms we've got now. The Boudoir was the one that I was thinking of.
Enough said.
So there's like I said, a bit of a full house tonight. And we're actually going to stream, I think, on Instagram for the first time. So if Instagram Live, so we're getting down with the kids tonight, and it's working apparently.
Yeah, we're getting thumbs up from our left from Pete, so that's obviously working. We don't know how many people are going to be watching it because we seem to have the vast majority of our following in the room with us here.
29 so far.
29, nice. Get in.
So there's only 2 beers to taste today on our much shorter YouTube session, but they're both Imperial Stouts. So you definitely want them both out of the fridge if you hadn't already got them out of the fridge. And if you have left it really last minute, then one under each armpit, and we should be warm enough by the time we go. One of the things we always say is if you like the videos, please subscribe and click the like button.
Excellent. Yeah, so no guests this time, much shorter time, and a bit of a change to the format. It's a bit of an interim format. And then as we disclosed last time, next month from February, we will be doing a new format. Love to tell you what it is, but we don't know yet. But by then, you will have assisted us in working out what that new format is going to be. Those of you in the room post this video will be helping us delve into that. So yeah, I do the running order at this point. Right, it's 2 beers. This is going to take a long time. We're going to do Standard Empress, and we're going to be doing one of the 4 barrel-aged versions that we've released this year. We're going to be doing the rye whiskey barrel-aged version. So because we're not going to be tasting them, I'll just reel off the list of other beers that could be found in your box this month, depending on which level of box you actually have. So you could have Double Fruited Juice, Clever Guile, Hop Sessions 5 or 6, Small Ton Coco, and the much praised Amundsen Barrel-Aged Red Velvet Cask. Why have I written cask stout?
Cask stout. Yeah, collab stout.
Collab stout. I don't know what that was supposed to say, but yeah. So for Amundsen's 10th birthday, we did a collaboration with them. It was a beer that spent some time in barrel, and then got flavored to be like a red velvet cake. So yeah, lucky if you've got one of those.
There's a slight red hue in it when you pour it in the foam. It looks really cool, and it tastes very nice. I can confirm. I think Joanna had a bottle can last night, did you? And she's still standing, so that's a good sign. Or sitting.
So because we're only doing the 2 beers, we can't do a lot of additional content beyond that. But what we will be doing is doing a very quick dive into the other beers that you can find in your box this month, given we're not giving a lot of detail away other than that. And then at the end, we'll also be talking about what you can expect in next month's box. Okay. So on to the first beer.
So as Lee said, we're only tasting 2 beers, so it keeps it relatively simple. Hopefully most of you have already tried Ton Coco at some point in your Brew York history. One of the beers we're most well known for, a coconut, cacao, chocolate and tonka milk stout. That beer is about 4.3%. Launched originally on cask, and as we grew as a brewery, we developed that beer and we brought out Imperial Ton Coco, which was the 7.5% version. So that came in 2017, and then 2018.
What month?
September. September. No,
it's August.
All right. Yeah. Well, I knew we launched it at Leeds International Beer Fest, which was September, but we obviously must have brought it out a little bit sooner than that. So that came in 2017. And then 2018 in January, for Triannuary, back then we brewed a beer. We opened the brew house up and we got invited people down to join us for a brew day. And we brewed what was eventually renamed Empress. That went to a audience vote. And Empress was born, 10.6%.
Yeah, we decided at a time when everybody's doing abstinence that we would develop an 11% Imperial Stout. Because why not?
So and it's kind of grown even more legs since then. So each year when we brew it now, we lay some down in a barrel, and you guys usually help us choose those barrels and then purchase lots of them, it seems. So yeah, it's become one of the mainstays of our production calendar now, which is great. And yeah, we've brought some pretty interesting ones out. The Buffalo Trace has won quite a lot of awards as what was the one, the best barrel aged stout in the UK.
Yeah, the World Beer Awards,
which was pretty impressive. And we were pleased with that one. But personally, we've liked every other variant, it seems, to that one. I personally remember the Jack Daniels one we did, which was really, really good.
It's really sweet, that one. Yeah, the first year we did it, we did Jack Daniels, Wild Turkey, and Buffalo Trace. And I think that's the first time that we really got an appreciation for how different the barrel character can be picked up in these different stouts. And that's what's inspired us every year to try and do something different, to add something like rum or rye or whatever that might be. And once again, this year, you're going to help us determine what we're going to put the beer into for next year. So that'll be coming up soon.
And I remember back then we did the blending box. I don't know if anyone bought one of those. It was a 4-pack with the original in and 3 of the different variants. And we very sensibly encouraged you all to open 4 40ml cans of beer and blend them together and work your way through them. So obviously this year we've stepped that down to 3 30ml cans because our canning line is much better than it used to be, and we can actually pretty easily move between the different formats, which means we can kind of package stronger beers in a more sensible format now. Obviously, for sharing, you just need to buy 2 boxes though, or try to get 2 of the beers. So back onto Empress Ton Coco. So Ton Coco itself, we always describe as a liquid bounty bar. Empress is what we feel the indulgent end of the scale. It's dark chocolate, bounty-like flavor, but not so well. It is strong beer, but the lactose in there help to make it a milk stout. Helps it be a bit more accessible. I did ask maybe for a small pour, but that is a very small pour. So I haven't tried this year's yet. Have you tried this year's?
Yeah, about 2 minutes ago.
Before I started talking.
Yeah, no, it's tasting great once again. One thing that's relatively unique about this as a stout is we only use barley-derived forms of cereal in here. We don't use any wheat and oats. Oats are quite typically used in pastry stouts. But I don't even remember why I did it this way. But a long while ago, I decided I just wanted it to be barley, and it has been barley only ever since.
And we haven't, the Ton Coco base malt recipe hasn't changed since we brewed it. So yeah, it's one of the few recipes that we've tried not to. Well, we've done lots of variants of, but we've tried not to change too much.
So what I didn't do on here was to list all of the other variants of Ton Coco that we've done through the years, because there's almost too many to list now. I think what could be quite interesting is
the audience.
How many do you think you can name?
We'll come back with a challenge later on. You've got to gamble. You've got to tell us how many you can name without any help. And if you hit that number, and we'll gamble you, we might shout you a drink at the bar after this.
And if you get competition, we'll tell you what the next version is going to be.
Yeah. Oh, almost dropped it. So yes, so Tonka obviously is quite a prominent flavour in this beer. It's one of the things that were the projects that we wanted to embark upon when we started the brewery. We tried the Hawkshead Tonka beer. We talk about that quite a lot on these tasting sessions. It was a big inspiration for this. And Matt, who's the head brewer, or was the head brewer of Hawkshead, who's now head brewer at Lakes, developed the Tonka beer. And
inspired by his wife, Michelle, who I think was using it in cuisine.
Yeah, and we wanted to brew a beer with Tonka in, and that was how we came up with Ton Coco in the first place. And it's great because we've become really good friends with Matt since we tried his beer and got to know what he was capable of. And then since he started Lakes Brewing, we've become great friends with those guys, and they're coming down to our birthday in April. Has that been announced yet?
Yeah.
As now.
I've got the full list of breweries. We are revealing that later on in case you have missed the drops that we've done one by one.
So yeah, we've just arranged to go across to where is it? The Kendal, where they do the mint cakes, is what I was going to say. We're going to go across to Kendal in February or March to brew a beer with the guys that they can launch at our birthday. So we're going to do another collab with them, which we're pretty excited about. And we haven't even got as far as talking about the recipe or even the style. We've just talked about dates right at this point. So I can pretty much guarantee it's got Tonka in it.
So there is a little bit more to the origin story of Ton Coco. So yes, the inspiration absolutely partly was Matt and his great beer Tonka that he'd done at Hawkshead. But the idea also came about when we met with some representatives of York Camera, and we have a few of those representatives in the room today. And they invited us to make a beer for our first appearance at York Beer Festival in September 2016. And we had a bit of a brainstorm when we spoke about our inspiration with this Tonka beer, and then we mentioned a home brewer that we knew at the time who was making a great beer with coconuts. So we decided we wanted to do the fusion of Tonka and coconut. And then we thought, in what has become the kind of Brew York mantra, that's not enough, let's throw everything else in. So we threw some cacao in and some vanilla as well. And that's how we conceived Ton Coco. And it became beer of the festival. And I'm sure there was no ill doing there, that the beer brewed for the festival became the beer of the festival.
Independent judging.
But we'll take it.
Yeah, we love this beer. We do different variants of it, and we're going to come back and challenge you all on that shortly. But if I was to say that we're going to brew another 4.3% version soon, and it's going to be a variant on Ton Coco, any requests in the room? Any hopes? Chili. Ooh, chili chocolate. Yeah, could be interested. Marmalade. Oh, like marmalade and chocolate.
So
we got Fanta.
So yeah, we've had marmalade. Orange is a really hard flavour to work with in beer, but yes, thanks.
Cherry. We did cherry Ton
Cherry
Coco.
we have done.
So oh, bring the barrel aged Jack Daniels back. Yeah, that could be a good shout. I found a few cans in my cupboard the other week, so I'll be interested in how they're tasting.
I've got 2 of those full packs.
Nice.
So,
yeah. So, anyone in the audience like peanut butter?
Yes.
So a bit of a
you know that bit where we said if they guessed near to the right amount of, and we would then tell them.
No, I was talking. That's another part of the competition. I was just asking if you like peanut butter.
Right. Okay.
So
well, that's that big reveal then. Okay. So we'll just talk a bit about what else is in your box, and then we'll come back to you, and you need to see how many of the versions of Ton Coco you can name. So, in your box this month, should we alternate on these?
Yeah, if you want to.
Yeah. We've got double fruited juice, which is essentially the same beer, but with double the amount of fruit. So there's 700 kilos of puree and 5,000 litres of that particular beer.
So the pump will have been working hard to keep that in suspension.
A special peristaltic pump, yes.
Clever Guile, we did a re-release of a brew, a collab we did with Neon Raptor maybe a year before that, was it? We decided to bring that back, and we brought it back on cask as well this time around. So if you're lucky enough to go into a venue that happens to have a reasonable cask beer lineup, hopefully they'll have Clever Guile on. It's tasting really good this year. It was good last year, but it's tasting good this year. And
somehow we've ended up with 2 of the Hop Sessions beers in your pack this time around. So Hop Sessions, for those of you that don't know, is a 4.5% hop changing beer. So every time the grist remains the same, and we change the 3 hops. So Hop Sessions 5 was Laurel, Nelson, and Motueka, and Hop Session 6.
I haven't tried that one, but I did like 5, the New Zealand one. Strata, Talus, and Cascade. So Talus is something we used in Thundertaker, wasn't it? Back in when we did the wrestling series, the Showstopper. Not Showstoppers, that was a different series. But yeah,
Survivor.
Survivor series.
Yeah.
And then, yes, what else was in the box?
So there's also small Ton Coco in the box. And then finally,
the, what did you call it earlier? The, oh no,
it's still, I've obviously copied the same thing.
Barrel aged red velvet cask
stout.
But it's actually a pastry stout. So the Amundsen collab was in the gold boxes this month. So that was very
supposed to say cake, isn't it?
Cake, yeah. It was a very, very expensive beer to bring into the country, apparently. So yeah, that was a bit of a treat.
Right, now over to you in the
Someone
room.
in the audience who's feeling brave.
And online, if you want to get your comments in.
Who can outbid each other? Who can do at least 4 variants? Someone must be able to do 4 Empress variants. It's for a pint of beer, this. Who can outbid 4?
Let's do it collectively. As a group, how many of them do you think you're going to get?
We're just going original and barrel aged.
No, not barrel aged this time. Just
So ignoring barrel
No,
variants.
just anything
how
with
many
Ton
different
Coco in the name. It's not-
variants of Ton Coco can you name?
32.
32. Wow. I don't know how many we have made, but I'm sure it's not 32.
If we drop the barrel aged ones out, it's probably not near that. Should definitely. There was 21.
So
yeah, I
there's some
remember that.
insight. Yeah.
There's not more than that now, though.
So if there was 21, and there may possibly be more, how many of the 21 as a group do you think you can name?
I reckon you should be able to do 10. Let's go with 10.
One person in the competition made a pretty good guess.
Yeah, how many?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Oh, they've listed them all. No, they've listed 9.
Oh,
So right, so
sounds like about half of them are missing.
I know we need to do 10
Right.
in the audience. Who's going
Who's
to
going to shout the first one? Go on then.
Okay. So go through my list.
No, just
No, one suggestion
per
at a time.
person. We're going to go for.
Barton 1792.
So that's
The
Barton
barrel aged one,
1792
yeah.
is one of the barrel aged ones. So we're not including the barrel aged ones. It's just the different adulterations without barrel.
There we go.
Salted
Salted
caramel
caramel
Ton
was the
Coco.
first one.
So there's one.
Tiramisu.
Tiramisu's 2.
Small.
Small's 3.
Imperial small.
Imperial small 4.
Yeah. Oat
Ton
Coco, yeah, good
Coco
one.
5.
Cherry, good
Cherry
one.
6.
Empress is one, yeah.
Empress 7.
Cherry,
Biscoff,
yeah. Biscoff,
8.
nah.
Salted caramel.
Naked, yeah.
9.
And salted caramel. What?
No, we've had salted caramel.
All right. Biscoff.
Biscoff. Did we have that one yet? Yeah. So we're still on 9.
Nitro Empress.
Nitro.
Nitro Empress. Yeah, go on. We'll have that one. 10.
That's 10. We got that one.
We've had that one over here.
Mars bar.
Mars bar. Yeah.
Mars, that was a very limited one.
Birthday
11.
edition.
Vegan
Yeah,
Ton
that's the Ton
Coco
Coco.
12.
Oh, ho, ho, ho.
We haven't had Imperial yet, so 13.
Yeah.
Have you had Ton Coco yet?
We haven't.
Yeah, the original.
14. So Ton Coco is 14.
Got Nitro, yeah.
No, we had Nitro Empress. Did we ever do Nitro on the original?
Vegan, really.
Vegan we've had. So we're at 14 at the minute. So we're missing a few.
Well,
by the sounds of it.
once you put the barrel aged variants in, that's when it gets into the 20s.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ton Coco Ho, which technically is just a new label. We call that 15. Time?
Maple and pecan.
Maple and Pecan. Did we do that one? No.
One of the barrel ones. You know the barrel ones we did.
Oh, yeah.
Imperial Tom.
Oh, we had that from over here. So I'm losing track here. We're about 15 or 16, aren't we?
Am I supposed to be checking these on?
Yeah.
Have
The
you got
official
any
list.
online that haven't been named in the room?
Oh, loads. That hasn't been named already. No, everyone's kind of really.
What about pretzel Ton Coco? We should do that.
Oh.
Salt.
Oh.
We did a poll in the last time we did Biscoff Ton Coco, and someone suggested Oreo, and I think that would be
Oreo.
Oh, your turn. We haven't done cookie. We haven't done. Oh, yeah. I guess that'd be along the same sort of lines. Custard cream. Interesting. I feel like we've missed some. But I can't think what they are.
I'm pretty sure it's the barrel aged variants. We got cherry, didn't we? Well, a peanut butter one, that'd be a good idea.
What an idea! Why don't we do a peanut butter one? Yeah. Yeah. So the cat is somewhat out of the bag there. In about 2 months' time, you will get your hands on a 4.3%, so original Ton Coco version that will be flavoured to taste like peanut butter.
On cask.
Probably on all variants. I imagine we'll do that on cask, keg, and can.
Is that derivative down from the barrel aged? Is that where the idea comes from? She did it in barrel aged.
The Reese's one that we did. Oh, the artist formerly known as Reese's. Yes.
Yeah, the Reese's beer isn't a Ton Coco. It doesn't have coconut. It doesn't have tonka bean. I hope it doesn't. You never know with like.
Well, there is another one that could have been included, which is essentially the biggest Ton Coco we ever did was the one with Emperors. But it wasn't called Ton Coco. It was called The Final Chapter.
I thought you were going to say Emperor's Ton Coco, which we haven't actually released.
Because that's all still.
No, I wasn't about the Reese's. I was about the barrel aged peanut butter. Not the pink can. Pink barrel aged peanut butter. Peanut butter marshmallow.
Oh, was that Dreams? Dreams.
No, not Reese's with a spoon. Reese's small barrel aged can. There's a beer with a spoon.
So yeah, I think that's what it was. And so I think we've milked that one. I don't think we're going to get any more content out of that.
So maybe we'll move on to
Can we go through all the barrel aged ones?
while
now?
we...
Can we still do them?
No, let's not do this. We'll go through some questions while we wait for our next beer. So anybody in the room got one to start off with? Yes, Carl.
I've been lucky enough to do the brewery tours on it, and very much enjoyed your flavour variations, which you're famous for. What form is the coconut in? Where do you put it in the process?
Okay, so we've just heard that the tour was enjoyed and that you very much like the flavour additions we do to our beers. And in what form do we add our coconut? So through the years, it has come in different forms. It has always been natural. So it's either been desiccated or it's been flaked. And at some points in our history, it's been toasted as well as either desiccated or flaked. And we've gone through a series of infusion vessels as our scale has grown. So we started out with one that was about 200 litres down here, and it's got a basket inside it, and the coconut would go in there along with the cacao nibs. And then you would have a pump that would suck the beer out of the vessel that the beer was in. It would go into the bottom of that. It would go across the coconut and cacao out of the top and then back into another part of the vessel. And it would do that across a period of about 2 to 3 days. You then put some gas pressure on the top, push the beer back out into the vessel, and by that point you've got really good flavour absorption. So when working with those kind of ingredients, you really do want to get the movement of the beer across them to get kind of increased flavour pickup. When we first did Ton Coco, actually, we didn't use an infusion vessel. We put the coconut, and it was desiccated at that time, directly into the vessel because we didn't know any better. But coconut expands when it gets wet. So it went into the sort of 1.5 inch pipe that we have at the bottom of the vessel, and it just plugged it. So we had the bright idea that, well, if we just keep putting more and more gas pressure on it, eventually that's going to go. And it did eventually go, and it ricocheted off everything near it. And the roof out there must be how tall?
Oh God, it's 4 or 5 meters. No, 6 meters must be.
Yeah, the roof out there is about 6 meters tall, and it was all over the roof. It went everywhere.
Splattered.
So that's the point at
coconut.
which we realised we like this beer, but if we're making it again, we need to find a better way of doing that. So that's how the infusion vessel came along. We now have a 800 litre one, which is probably about this tall, into which I think the maximum we can get in there is pushing up to about 200 kilos of coconut in one go. We actually had a bit of an accident in the brewery a matter of weeks ago where somebody decided to push it beyond those limits, and the coconut expanded, and the big filter that we have at the top that looks like a top hat, or rather I should say looked like a top hat, ended up squished into a space about this big. And if you ask me again afterwards, I will show you the photo of what it ended up looking like. And it's cost us best part of £1,000 to repair that vessel now. But yeah, now we definitively know what the capacity of that vessel is, and we will not be overstretching that again. So any other questions? Yes.
When you ran up the double juice bar site, you used the word for how it was coming out of the keg or something about how you had the fruit in it or something.
Peristaltic pump.
That
Yeah.
was the word. I didn't, what
Oh, you want to get really technical?
do that?
Leaders.
Probably not. So you have different types of pump that you can use. The most commonly used one's called a centrifugal pump, and it's an impeller. So you imagine a propeller at the back of a boat. Imagine that in a closed chamber. You have one of them going round, and it then pushes it out of a hull. But that action does something called shearing. So if you had yeast in there or you had fruit in there, it would make them all go pop. And if you make yeast go pop, it makes your beer taste meaty, which is not overly desirable. So if you want to move your beer and you want to move it vigorously, it's recommended that you use something called a peristaltic pump, which is about 4 to 5 times the price of a centrifugal pump. They're incredibly expensive, and it's a big pipe. And then you have this thing like that goes around, and it squeezes the pipe. Imagine if you're just imagine you're squeezing like toothpaste, and it's just constantly going like that. So it's pulling the beer through. So it doesn't kind of damage the beer, doesn't damage the yeast, but it achieves the same effect at extreme cost. I think our peristaltic pump costs us £7,000. They're not cheap. Good question, though.
Good explanation.
Anyone else with a question? Yes, Melissa.
Since you're talking about expensive bits of brew kit, is there a new bit of brew kit that you've been looking at and really fancy, but just think you can't quite justify the price of it?
You're talking to Lee.
Well, we should reiterate the question. So I've been asked, we've been asked, is there a bit of kit that is perhaps expensive, but we'd really love to get our hands on? Yes, always. The one thing I'd really like to get our hands on is a pasteurizer. And I know pasteurizers have a bit of a bad reputation. So the reason you would have a pasteurizer is, despite best endeavors, there's still going to be some yeast present in there. And if there's still some fruit or there's still some sugar, there is the potential for that yeast to continue to ferment those sugars. And that's when you hear these horror stories of exploding cans. So that's the sort of stuff that would keep me and weighing up on a night. But if you pasteurize in the same way that your bottle of milk would be, you raise it to a temperature above 72 degrees, and you can do it for as little as 15 seconds, and it would kill all of those microbes. So then it wouldn't matter if the sugar was present, and you can then sleep easily at night because there's no chance of re-fermentation. And if you think of like one of the best sour brewers in our country now, or in Scotland, Vault City, they have pasteurization. So it means you can put the fruit in and you don't have to let the yeast digest the sugars a bit, because you can just kill the microbes in there. So then the natural sweetness of the fruit remains. So to have a pasteurizer essentially gives you another thing in your arsenal. I would like to be able to introduce things like fruit into beer without the worry of the sugar that comes with it. And a pasteurizer would allow us to do that. But the reason we don't have one is because if we got one that would do the job at the end of our canning line, we're probably looking about £100,000. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and they occupy a lot of space. You're basically sending all these cans through a tunnel, a very, very long tunnel. Blasting heat through, but trying to minimize the temperature exposure. So if I could have anything, it would be a pasteurizer. Yes.
You say pasteurizer. I mean, you might have already explained this. Are there beers then, or brews then, that you would be able to do that you can't currently do, that you would then be able to add to your line?
Yes. So I've been asked, would you be able to do a more extensive range of beers? Absolutely. There are things that we couldn't consider. Like a lot of the American guys, like thinking of Vale, Mortalis, Hudson Valley, those kind of guys, they are putting fruit in where the fruit has not been turned into alcohol. The sugars of the fruit has not been turned into alcohol. So you've still got that natural sweetness of the fruit. So what you might notice in some of our beers is we put lactose in alongside our fruit. And that's because the sweetness of the fruit is gone. So if we didn't put the lactose in, what you're tasting is kind of like the fruit that you remember, but not exactly like the fruit that you remember. So we put the lactose in to kind of bring that sweetness back in. If we had a pasteurizer, we could put the fruit in there and not worry. And there would be various other applications.
So then does the pasteurizer offset the price of your lactose? Because how much do you pay for lactose?
I've been asked if the pasteurizer cost would offset the cost of the lactose. Regrettably not. No, lactose isn't that expensive. We use a lot of lactose. I think our contract's about something like 8 ton a year, which is quite a bit. We'll do one last question, and then we'll get on to the next beer.
Have you considered doing a 999 grams of coconut per litre Ton Coco variant?
Right. Have we considered 999 grams of coconut per litre variant? I mean, technically, you could go more if you wanted. What you're referring to there is if you're adding things like fruit into a beer, for it still to be called a beer, 50.1% at least of the sugar must still come from cereal grains. So they tend to to push those to the absolute limit is what you call 50-50 beers, where 50% of the sugar would be fruit, 50% of it would be barley derived or other cereal derived, and that's Vault City do that very effectively. With coconut, Yeah, because it's not really a source of sugar. You could push it as far as you want, but my team would absolutely kill me if I signed off on going any further than we already do with the coconut. It's not an easy thing to work with. Like we said, even though that infusion vessel's this size, we can only get 200 kilos in. So if we wanted to go more than that, then that would be 3 days infusion, dig it out, add more, do another 3 days infusion. And trust me, it's not fun doing just the first one without doing the extension of it.
And the losses are huge. So when we pump beer over the coconut, we lose a lot of the beer during the process. So typically when we're brewing a hoppy pale ale, we'll expect that we'll lose 15% of that liquid at some point by the time it gets to packaging. When it comes to Ton Coco, it's probably going to be 25% plus. So that an extra 10% you're going to lose as part of the process. So the more coconut you use, the more your losses will be, because some will be absorbed into it and some will just get left behind. You can't get the liquid back into the tank. So
that's what we need. A bit of equipment. We need a coconut press.
Coconut, yeah.
to squeeze the beer back out.
But yeah, the spent coconut, once we finish the infusion, if you taste it, isn't.
Oh, it's intensely bitter.
It's really bitter because it's not just coconut. It's coconut and cacao nibs. So we put them in the basket together and then infuse it. So
it's not just that. So the yeast's still in the beer at the point at which we do the infusion, and when you brew a beer, the bitterness of the beer at the start is quite a bit higher than it becomes at the end. And the biggest reason for that is it coats the yeast cells. So then when the yeast comes out of the beer, it's taking some of that bitterness out with it. But when we do this coconut infusion, it ends up acting as a massive filter. And all of that yeast ends up in there with the coconut. So if you eat that coconut, you're also eating the yeast that's coated with all this bitterness, which is, like Wayne says,
Marmite coconut.
Not very nice at all.
So what have we got next to drink?
Not
that page.
I guess that hint means I'm doing this one, all right? Where is it? Here we go. So this is barrel-aged rye Empress. Oh, there's no initials. Who's doing this one?
You.
I know. And which one is it?
That
one?
I don't know. I know which one mine is.
Oh, it's that one. Right, okay. Right. So this year we've done 4 versions. You, as our subscriber group, suggested 3. Last year you suggested Highland whiskey, you suggested Heaven Hill bourbon, and you suggested rum. And now we've got you all together. We decided to not taste any of them. We're going to do the rye one instead. And in your box next month, I think, if you're lucky enough, you'll be getting the other 3 variants. And at that point in time, we'll come back to you and ask you what your favorite is. The answer's rum, by the way. Okay. So every time that we do the barrel aging, what we do is we blend the beer that comes back out of the barrel with some of the fresh beer. And every year we do a little bit of a taste panel and we work out what we think the right blend back is going to be. Last year we went as high as 50%. So 50% of it was fresh beer. In hindsight, we look back and thought, we think we lost a bit of the spirit character. We lost a bit of the barrel character going that far. So this year we brought it down and it's only been a 30% blend with the fresh beer. And the reason we blend in the fresh beer is to reinvigorate the coconut character, because after this beer's sat in the barrel for a year, the coconut's a little bit muted. So we put some of the fresh beer in. It brings that kind of freshness back up and it adds added complexity to the beer. So if you think of some of the finest blended beers in the world, like the Belgians do with their fine sours, what they're doing is they're taking a young beer that has kind of intense character, and they're taking a more refined aged beer, and the two on their own are not as good as the fusion of the two. And that's what we find with Ton Coco and other barrel-aged beers that we do. So yeah, it softens out the wood character, but it's elevating the fresh elements as well. So yes, let's have a test.
I'll let you try it. Yep. Have you?
What do we think in the room to this one? So with rye, we should be getting kind of a bit of a peppery back note. Are we getting any of that?
I find it easier to drink than the fresh Empress, because it just feels more rounded, and I guess it's mellowed over the 12 months it's been in barrel. But yeah, like you say, quite dangerous because it's very easy to drink for the strength.
So has anybody dipped into their boxes and sampled any of the others yet? Oh no, you can't because we've not sent them yet. I was going to ask Pete to edit that bit out, but he's disappeared. Right. So you got that?
I said we got them on Tuesday. Like we got the.
Oh, you bought them
the
separately?
the box set.
You're not gone through it yet. Pete, and
The rum is lovely.
Yeah, the rum's works really well on this. Bourbon's a great barrel for aging stouts, and we've done a lot of it now. And typically, that's what in my mind I'd go to on this beer. But when we brought out Ton Coco rum, the actual spirit, a few years back, we realised how well this flavour could work in a rum. So when we barrel aged it in rum for the first time, it was like, wow, this works really well.
it's one of those kind of slap yourself on the forehead moments.
Yeah.
Like what? It's like coconut. Why didn't we think of rum before now?
Oh, sorry, our Tonka and coconut rum, because it's not called Ton Coco rum, because we couldn't trademark the word Ton Coco outside of beer. That's a new story.
Did we ever tell you the story for that? So there's a white wine producer in New Zealand, and there is a bay in New Zealand called
Cloudy Bay. Oh, T-E-K-O.
Coco. Yeah, so there's a bay in New Zealand called Coco, and they've named their white wine after this bay. And they thought that people might get our stout confused with their Sauvignon Blanc.
They don't even sell the wine in this country, but they sell Cloudy Bay wine in the country. So they registered the trademark many years before we started brewing, and they registered their trademark in all the drink categories, even though they don't actually produce anything in this category. So they opposed our trademark registration for Ton Coco under the beer category. Oh, sorry. Well, I don't even think we narrowed it down. And then so we had to we spent a lot of money on legal fees. It was very, very frustrating because it was a word that we made up, and it obviously wasn't trying to compete with what they were doing. And then during our legal process, we brought out Ton Coco rum, and we told them we weren't ever going to do any Ton Coco in anything other than beer. And then we were, oh shit! It didn't even cross our mind. And then so we shot ourselves in the foot a little bit, but they were pretty good about it in the end. And I was like, actually, I think they made us specify it was dark beer. I don't know why. I don't know what's such a strange thing to say. So maybe Ton Coco White Stout we'll do next and see if they pull us up on it.
Do you know, we were talking about that a while ago. I don't know why we haven't attempted to do it as a white stout. So that may well come at some point soon.
But yeah, we did eventually get the trademark for it, but they wouldn't let us trademark it outside of the UK. But we saw how hard they fought us for that trademark. So if anyone else tried to do a beer called Ton Coco outside the UK, they'd probably fight them just as hard. So we kind of figured it'd be.
And one thing I never got, having a limited understanding of trademark law, is you're not supposed to be able to trademark a geographical entity. So if they've named it after a beer, they shouldn't have been granted that trademark anyway. But anyway,
that was a little side project. So
not that I'm still annoyed about it or anything.
So has anyone in the audience got any plans to try any of the other variants tonight? I don't know if we're doing an Empress flight, but I'm sure you can get an Empress flight.
Well, whatever you try, you must try the rum ones. They're all excellent, but the rum one, I mean, it's supposed to be 11%. It tastes like you're drinking a 6% beer. It's that smooth. It's the very definition of dangerous.
Is the Highland one quite peaty?
No. Highland tends to be more kind of caramelly and kind of sweet. And Highland whiskey is just working with whiskey in general is kind of a newish area for us. We'd only done it with that one beer with Fierce Beer before, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I think it was doing that Ghost Dimension with Fierce Beer that opened our eyes to what whiskey can be. The fear with whiskey is that, especially if you were using Islay, the peated kind of smoky kind of whiskies, they're so potent that the concern is that they would dominate over the other characteristics of the beer. But what we found with using Highland whiskey, which I guess is more towards the bourbon side because it's a little bit sweeter, a little bit more caramelly, they work really, really well. So I've not actually tried the whiskey one, so maybe I need to try that later on tonight and see how that's fared.
First round is on you.
Definitely no echo to that one. Right. Okay. Any questions on that particular beer before we go into telling you about what's coming up soon? Yes, over here.
Are all barrels about the same price, or are some more expensive than
That's a very good question. So are all barrels the same price? So the barrel price is really dictated by how frequently it can be used. So bourbon barrels are the most abundant because there's this lovely kind of reciprocal arrangement between the US and Scotland, whereby any new bourbon must be made with virgin oak. So it has to be a fresh barrel, has to go in that virgin oak, and then because every new one has to be virgin oak, it means they have to dispose of those barrels immediately afterwards. So then a big proportion of them come across the Atlantic, go to Scotland, where in Scotland they have a slightly different arrangement. You are not allowed to use virgin oak to age whiskey. You have to use a barrel that has been used for a previous purpose. So the vast majority of discarded bourbon ends up becoming whiskey. So because of all of that, it's quite easy to intercept one of those bourbon barrels coming into the country. So they're fairly abundant, they're fairly cheap. In good times, you might get them for as cheap as about 150. Bad times, maybe 250. So they're really accessible, not that expensive. The flip side of that is if you think of something like a sherry, where year after year they take the sherry out, they put more sherry in, they take the sherry out, they put more sherry in. So that barrel has a long life. And over that period of time, it's absorbed masses of sherry character. And they don't retire those beers very often. So if we wanted a sherry cask of equivalent size to a bourbon one, it's going to be about 800 to 1,000 pounds. Yeah, that's why you've not seen us do a sherry age beer, because I don't think you guys would pay the price if we did get our hands on one of them.
Vocation one just came out of the sherry.
Ah, Pedro Jimenez. Yeah, very nice.
So the other thing as well is with bourbon, because we probably only get one use out of it. We'll possibly get two uses out of it. The price per use isn't that bad. That's why your barrel aged beers are more expensive. Not only are we taking the risk and sitting on them for a year, but we've got to recover that cost of the barrel in the beer. But you've got something that's potentially £1,000, and you may only ever get one use out of it. It's a big premium to once you split. There's only 200 litres usually around 200 to 225 litres in a barrel. Once you spread that between the cans, it's a lot of money to add on to your beer. And yeah, we were lucky in our first few years. We didn't get that much wastage or losses. We've certainly not been lucky the last few years. We've had to pour a lot of barrel aged beer down the drain due to spoilage over. You've got no guarantee. And it's heartbreaking when you've got something that you know is going to taste great, but you can't sell it because there's an infection or something gone wrong with it.
In an average barrel aging program, 20% of what you put into the barrel, when you come to take it back out, you're going to end up discarding because of some sort of taint that would not be consumable. Sometimes it's down to the general quality of the barrel where it doesn't quite seal properly, so it leaks and it lets air in and the beer becomes oxidized and ends up tasting like sherry. And then other times it's because there's some sort of bacterial content in there, like Wayne's saying, and it becomes tainted, and you open it up and it's a little bit furry, and you think, I don't think anyone's going to want to drink that. And then we have to discard it. Yeah, we've had more than our fair share of them recently.
No, exactly. And the other thing as well is the loss rates are really high because the wood soaks up a lot of that beer. So we've got maybe a 205 litre barrel. If we got 150 litres of beer packaged at the end of that, that'd be a great result. So we do 25+% loss rate on something that's very expensive anyway.
You must have heard the phrase "the angel share." Yeah. So
that's when Lee's drinking it on racking day.
So for anyone who doesn't know, the angel share refers to two things. Wood is porous, so over time some water is naturally evaporating and it's concentrating, and they call that disappearing liquid the angel share. The angels have got it, and it can also be through leaking and seeping into the wood. So yeah, that's why they call it the angel share. So there is a particular type of barrel that I am very keen to work with, and has actually started to come down in price substantially recently. So you can get maple barrels. So it's a bourbon barrel that they've then aged maple in it. And these used to be thousands of pounds, but I spoke to someone recently, and what's really annoying me right now is I can't remember who I spoke to. But apparently they can get these for about 350, 400. So if we can get like a maple barrel for around about that kind of money, then it'd be great to see one of these types of beers in that. So that may be leading you somewhat for the question later on what we should put this into next time.
Has anyone? Has anyone in the room had the State of Mind Flux 1, which was the cherry Ton Coco, barrel-aged cherry Ton Coco? So that was a relatively low ABV. I think it was 8.5%. It was pretty low for a barrel-aged beer for us. And that was done in red wine barrels. And the good thing about those ones, the barrels weren't particularly cheap. They were, and we knew we'd only get one use out of them. But they're the most beautiful barrels, aren't they? They make amazing tables. So we use our barrels for everything. So you go down to Hanley Tap in Osbaldwick, pretty much most of our furniture is made out of barrels now, or of some form. So we do get some use out of the wood after we've barrel aged in them. But these red wine ones are amazing. They're really, really good quality, and you can't use them again for aging beer because they'll probably turn it into some sort of crazy sour. But
you need to be a little bit careful when aging stuff with wine. Spirits is fine because the alcohol content of the spirit is generally enough to deter bacterial growth, although we have said even that has its risks. But wine is not strong enough to deter most bacteria. So it is possible for things to grow in wine barrels that could be really bad for your beer. So I think we got a little bit lucky with cherry Ton Coco. I would be a little bit wary of trying to repeat that experiment, I think.
Or shorter time in barrel when you're doing your aging process. One of the things we're definitely being more cautious about now is how long we put things in barrels. When we first started, in our mind, it was the longer it was in barrel, the better, because you'll get a lot of the flavour. Whereas in reality, what we've learned is that it can really backfire because your risk of losing the beer is much higher. But also, you get past you get to a point of diminishing returns where the longer it's in, it's not gaining that much. And it's also actually getting an oxygen ingress, and then the oxygen is going to then spoil the beer. So we're better to keep tasting the beer. Once we're happy with it, package it and lock it at that point in its maturation. Doesn't mean we're going to sell it, but we've got it then locked at that level. So we actually have a couple of beers packaged, ready to go now. The next two State of Mind beers are ready to go, but we aren't launching them because we've got lots of lots of imperial stouts out at the moment. So later on, one of us will probably tell you what those beers are, but if we haven't already.
Well, I think we'd have to remember what they are. No, is one of them Sunday, or have we already done that one? Yes. Right, Pete, so we're just going to go through what's coming up. After that, I'm going to come to you for some online questions, if you've got some. Yeah. Right, so what we have coming up. Do you want to alternate again on this?
Yeah, so first up is just being packaged today and yesterday, was it?
Yep.
Which is Orange Infusion. So it's a collaboration we did with Shiny Brewery last month, and it's an orange tea pale. Sounds really strange when you say orange tea pale, but it's basically an orange tea that we've infused with a pale ale.
So if you're localish, you might have heard of a tea company called Hebden Tea. Yeah, so they do some quite wacky tea varieties, and we've taken their orange ice cream tea and we've infused that particular beer with it. And then the other one, we've taken a tea called Strawberry Sencha, which I think is a green tea derived one. And we've infused that. So it was one beer split in half, infused with two different teas, and you get both of those beers next month.
So the next one is a raspberry guava and rose sour. It's 4.8% sour, and
we are calling
I Love Brew York. So I Heart BY. So it's coming out for Valentine's Day.
Oh, isn't that sweet?
So the name itself is something we talked about when we first started Brew York, and then we kind of forgot about it, and then we went out to our naming thread that we have on with all the team at work. Everyone chucks their ideas in, and we already went down a route of going to the branding guys with a name, and then someone dropped this one in and we're like, oh my God, how did we forget about that name? So some last minute change of plans, and Owen and the guys at UBD are working on it at the
huge
moment.
branding potential with it, and if you really like the beer and we get to
We'll
bring
get you a
it back,
t-shirt,
we can do some merch. The I Heart BY. So yeah, watch the space on that one. We've then got the 3 variants of Empress that we're not tasting tonight. So Highland Whiskey, Heaven Hill, and Rum.
And then we had the collab that we brewed this week. So we had Thick Sauce in for a collaboration.
Yeah, Luca from Thick Sauce was over on Tuesday.
So this one's going to be pretty cool. So this is going to be a Mexican brownie imperial milk stout. So a bit of chili in there.
You missed a rather crucial detail out. And 11%.
Yeah.
Mexican brownie imperial stout.
So there'll be an accompanying sauce as well. So they're making a chili sauce. We're making the beer. And
he was telling me about the sauce. He's going to smoke some chili. He's going to smoke some tomatoes. It was sounding incredible what he's going to make with the sauce. And they're designing the artwork for the sauce, and then the artwork for the sauce will be what will also go on the can for the beer. So yeah, really, really looking forward to that particular one.
And then we've got the next sessions.
And then finally, so for Hop Sessions 007, what kind of hops do you think we should put in that? Or English hops, yes.
Sophisticated.
So we have used English hops in beers in recent years, but we've never actually done an entirely English hop beer until now. So 007 is going to be hopped with Jester, Harlequin, and Olicana, which are kind of the modern generation of English hops, which are more American in character. I'm not going to say they're entirely American. That would be a complete lie. But they are much more American in character.
Who are we going to get to do the video for this beer?
Well, they walk into a big circle and doing that.
I think we should get Yusuf to do the shaken, not stirred. Because he made the feature in the last one with a shaken, didn't he?
So we haven't seen the branding for this particular release, but we are told it's going to be black and white with hints of reds, like the opening sequence for any Bond film.
I think there's some pointing suggestions that Pete should rent his tux and come in and to go the other side of the camera for this video.
Make a kind of
any excuse to see me in a tuxedo white.
Right. Also coming up, we have our Brewery Bash. I mean, it's a little way off yet, to be fair, but we thought we'd give it a mention, given that we've sold out the Saturday afternoon.
Did anyone
already.
forget to get their Saturday tickets? So yeah, Saturday afternoon is unfortunately sold out, or fortunately sold out, which is great. So it's going to be a nice busy one. Still plenty of tickets left for the Friday and the Saturday evening. And yeah, really looking forward to this. Have we announced every brewery now? I know we're going to talk about them in a second.
I don't know, but if we haven't, we're about to now.
Have we put that on socials?
Not yet.
No. Okay. So yeah, it doesn't matter. You guys can know, and the 25 people watching can know.
Right, one at a time then. So first, Amundsen.
Elusive, we mentioned those guys, haven't we?
Yay!
Fierce Beer.
Yay!
We've got Fine Ales coming down.
Yay!
Lakes Brew Co.
Yay!
We've got Siren coming.
Yay!
Thornbridge.
Yay!
And finally,
I've got Umbard from Brighton. So 8 breweries.
And that's not all. There are some further surprises that will be revealed at a later date.
Lee means later tonight.
Right. Okay. So we're through that. So we'll get on to questions. Let's start with some from online, given we didn't do any of those last time.
Right up. So I've got my mic on, but for the purpose of people in the room, I'm going to read them out loud here. So first question comes through from our good mate Alan from Pocklington. He asks, "I've still got
Alan's
an
actually in the
last
room.
year."
He's still got what?
It could be a different Alan then.
Oh, right.
So I've got an Empress from last year. Is there a noticeable difference this year, Brew York?
Oh.
Well,
that would require me to remember.
I was going to say my taste buds from last year. I've got them all in my stout fridge in my office, so I might do a side by side, and I'll let you know. Shouldn't be.
Yeah.
The actual base beer should be tasting consistent with last year. I mean, arguably, what was the infusion slightly different this year?
If you still have that version now, it will taste better now than it did last year. So if you do them side by side, I would expect the one that you've held from last year to taste better than the fresh one that you have now.
Cool. So next question from Chris Gibbs asks, any plans to do any more deeper or double deepers this year?
There's none on the plan, but for our birthday, a little bit of a spoiler, we are going to be asking our broader team, so not just our brewing team, we're going to be asking everybody who works for Brew York, so in the bars and the head office, to, between them, design a pale ale for us. And we have a sneaking feeling that they're probably going to do a dipper. Because they like spending our money, don't they? So
the dippers don't come out very often.
So it's not technically in plan, but I think almost certainly we're going to end up with one through that project.
Cool. Another question. This one from Pete Riley, who is in the room right now. Where are the new bars going to be, and when will they open?
Can we mention one?
No. We've got our team staff Christmas party on Monday. So we're going to, with the wider team, give them a bit of an update. We want those guys to be fully on board and in the loop. And then hopefully we'll do a press release later next week to give everyone an information. We'll probably drop a post on the subs thread before we put that press release
You're
out.
not going to have to wait much longer, because it would seem someone in the press has got
Someone
wind.
found out,
Somehow the press have got wind of one of them already and are asking us for comment. So we're now having to accelerate our press release, which I know you're really happy about. So we will have a press release out early next year about the first of our new openings. Next week.
Hopefully sooner than that.
Sorry, next week. Yeah, I might have been drinking some rather strong beers here. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, so we've got one from Emma Barker. She says, I really like Cocoa Pops. Would you consider doing a Ton Coco version?
Ton Coco Pops.
Using Cocoa Pops.
The name's already done, so that's great.
I mean, the name is good. Kind of feel like we have to make it now.
Ton Coco Pops.
Yeah. Who did it? Who did the popping candy with their beer?
Northern Monk did.
We're
you know, remember we
tape up on to everyone.
Yeah, Northern Monk did a beer where they had to sellotape popping candy to the bottom of all the cans. The reason we knew about that, because we knew someone who worked in their packaging team, and they absolutely hated that. So what? Some Cocoa Pops on the bottom of the can.
Mike's got a good name for it.
Yeah. It sounds like one the Portman group would love.
Moving swiftly on. And here's a good question, and this is one that so many people have asked us fairly recently. From Fraser Smith, any plans for getting any Brew Your beer on the Perfect Draft machine?
You should say that. So yeah, there is, and I think we can say a little bit more now.
Did you ask him to ask that question?
No.
The leading one. So we brewed a collaboration with Vocation. I'm not sure if we've mentioned it on this before. Brewed a recent collaboration with Vocation, which launches hopefully February, March on the Perfect Draft machine. So that's going to be our first foray into the PD world. PD is the Perfect Draft. And we're hoping on the back of that, it's a competition. So they're doing collaborations with 4 breweries based on feedback, customer feedback. The Perfect Draft team will hopefully give one of those breweries an opportunity to do their own beers on the system. So we're hoping that you guys will all get involved. We'll find ways to get you involved, and we'll hope we'll get some great feedback on it and hopefully get our own listing. It's going to be a coffee stout, a coffee porter, is it? I can't remember.
Coffee stout. It's called Darkness Beckons. We really want to succeed with this Perfect Draft project, so we're going to be doing a lot of activity around it. So watch our socials for ways in which you can benefit from it and ways in which you can get involved. So, for example, spoiler, you will be able to win a Perfect Draft machine at some point.
One
of the audience?
Can you explain the concept of the Perfect Draft machine? I use pint. I have a pinter.
Oh yeah. So
what I'm asking you is it a similar line? Can you explain what it is?
Yes. So the question is, what is the Perfect Draft machine? During lockdown in particular, a lot of these machines made their way onto the market. Each one's kind of brand owned to protect their IP, but AB InBev developed the Perfect Draft machine with Philips, I think it is, and it's basically a 6-litre mini keg that you can dispense at home. And there's lots of other brands. There was the Blade, the Pinter, and a few others. And
obviously, you want the Perfect Draft.
a lot of the other machines. Well, none of the machines have really taken a big step into craft beer, mainly because most of the people who use the majority of the drinkers who use those machines at home tend to drink lager from them, and then they're also very, very big in Europe for bars. Bars serve Belgian beers on them, 6 litres at a time, so they're really, really popular over there, and they've only really gained popularity in the UK over the last couple of years. But as they're gaining in popularity, we've seen brands like Tiny Rebel, Thornbridge, Magic Rock, Vocation recently. So they're the main craft brands. Brewdog have been on for ages, and probably I don't think Beavertown have been on. Then they've got it's Heineken owned, so they'll be on the Blade machine.
Yeah.
But yeah, so depending on which AB InBev owned brewery tend to do like Stella and all those other things. But they're one of the only ones who've really actually tried to involve other breweries in the process. And they're always very cautious. They want to appeal to all you guys. They want you all to have the machines, but they also want their people have the machines to keep buying Stella on them. So we'll try and convince them to buy our beer on there and make it available on there. And
so what's really good about the new generation of Perfect Draft machines is all of these machines cool your beer, but for stout, it cools it too much. So the new generation offers you the control to specify the specific temperature at which you want to serve that keg. So it's perfect for stouts, which is why we want to launch this as a stout on that new machine. So you can bring that temperature in a little bit higher, and you don't have to take it out like the fridge like we've always told you to do. It'll just do it at the perfect temperature for you. Okay. Any more, please?
No, that's it.
Right.
Oh my God, we're going to finish on time.
Well, no, we'll do a few questions in the room, so then we won't be finishing on time. But we have broadly run to time, though, better than we expected we were probably going to do.
Well, we can keep doing more questions in the audience after we go off stream anyway. But if you stay on stream too long, you lose YouTube scores points. Apparently.
Give me 2 last questions, and I'm sure the people online would appreciate that. Right, the first hand that went up over there.
You mentioned on every barrel age you use your base beer. What is the base beer? Is it based on Coco or is it Empress Ton Coco?
So when we blend a beer back, it would be the original Empress that gets blended with Empress. Yep. Anyone else? Yep.
Has the new tax regime changed your thinking about it?
Has the new tax regime changed our thinking about Empress Ton Coco? So yes, it has made us have a long, hard think about not just Empress Ton Coco, about the production of any beer above 8.5%. So for those not in the know, we used to get a little bit of duty discount, tax discount, irrespective of the strength of the beer. Now they've changed it so above 8.5%. It doesn't matter about the size of your brewery. You pay full tax above 8.5%. So that meant all of a sudden those beers, if we were producing them, jumped up massively in price. So we've been quite cautious this year in our approach to producing those types of beers because we didn't know if you guys still wanted to buy them, having now seen the new price.
Yeah,
you are still buying them. So for the coming year, we plan to do a little bit more than we have been doing, but still be a little bit tentative about it, I think.
Yeah, so it's kind of reminds me a little bit of the chocolate bar. I can't remember what they call it, but basically how chocolate bars nowadays are shrinkflation.
That's what you mean.
So this isn't driven by ourselves, but obviously Empress this year, not the non-barrel aged version, is in free 30ml can for the first time ever. And that was a conscious decision, one, because it's a strong beer, but two, to make sure that the price per can was still relatively affordable. I mean, it's an expensive beer, but the tax on that beer is almost a pound a can more than it was like the year before. So unfortunately, the price of the beer grew as a result of duty. But we always wanted to be able to do stronger beers in free 30ml cans. It's just we didn't obviously want to pay the government an extra pound a can in tax at the same time. But unfortunately, that's the position we're in now. And thankfully, you guys still really love Imperial Stout, so we will continue brewing them and we'll continue releasing them. We'll probably just brew smaller batches of them when we do it.
And an element of it is going to depend on what other people do. So we kind of put the brakes on a bit. There's definitely some people that full on stopped. So if some people start to come back to it and the market becomes a little bit more saturated, then I guess that's why I use the word tentative. We need to keep watching what else is going on and see if that's still the right thing for us and for you.
There you go. So,
Okay. So that's the end of the YouTube. We're going to take some more questions in the room, and we want to talk to you about the format of YouTube going forward. Jesus. I think it's just as well we're ending the YouTube now, isn't it? I'd just like to say this is a culmination of my escapades this week. This is my third night out this week. And I'm not the young whippersnapper I once was.
So thanks for joining us at home, and thanks for joining us in the audience. Everyone who's watching at home, you can still input into what the format of YouTube is going to be going forwards. We still want your feedback. It's not just for the room. So let us know. Send us an email to info@brewyork.co.uk or put it on the members subscriber thread, and we'll see what we can do. But until next month. Cheers.
And next month, date-wise, I've got in here, it's likely Friday the 9th. I don't think we've absolutely nailed that down, have we? TBC on that one. And venue also TBC? Yeah. Right, so venue TBC, date TBC. Really informative there.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
All right, thank you.